What if everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle's pregnancies was a carefully crafted lie? DORIA Ragland, the woman who has stood by Meghan's side through every royal twist and turn, has just come forward with revelations that threaten to shatter the fairy tale image of the Duchess of Sussex. According to DORIA, both Archie and Lilibet were born via surrogate, a secret buried deep beneath layers of royal secrecy and media manipulation. If true, this could be the biggest scandal to rock the royal family in modern history, a deception that not only challenges Meghan's carefully curated narrative but also raises questions about the legitimacy of her children's place in the line of succession. But why now? Why would Meghan's own mother choose to reveal this now? And what does it mean for the future of the Sussex legacy? Stay with us as we unravel the shocking details and uncover the truth behind the palace walls. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What if one of the most celebrated and scrutinized pregnancies of the modern age was nothing but a carefully orchestrated illusion? For years, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's journey from royal couple to proud parents of Archie and Lilibet has been followed by countless admirers and critics alike. The world watched as Meghan cradled her growing belly, adorned in designer maternity wear, her radiant smile seemingly confirming the happiness of impending motherhood. The British royal family, despite their reservations, stood behind the couple, celebrating the new additions to the House of Windsor. But behind the royal curtains, a different story might be unfolding, one that is not just surprising but potentially scandalous. The source of this bombshell? None other than DORIA Ragland, Meghan Markle's own mother. Known for her poise, grace, and quiet presence by her daughter's side, DORIA has rarely stepped into the limelight. However, when she did recently, it was not for a gentle nod of support, but to drop a shocking revelation that could unravel the carefully maintained image of her daughter and, by extension, the royal family. DORIA Ragland has allegedly confessed that Meghan Markle was never really pregnant with either of her two children. Instead, both Archie and Lilibet were born via surrogacy, a secret kept so tightly that not even the closest family members were supposed to know. According to DORIA, Meghan fabricated the pregnancies to maintain control over the media narrative, ensuring that the public never questioned the authenticity of her journey into motherhood. If these claims are true, they pose a fundamental question. Why would Meghan go to such lengths to hide the truth? What were the stakes so high that even her own mother now feels compelled to reveal what really happened? Is this about preserving a public image, protecting a royal title, or something even deeper? To grasp the gravity of this revelation, we must take a step back and understand the foundation of this extraordinary claim. DORIA Ragland, though a supportive mother, has always been cautious about public exposure. As a social worker and yoga instructor, she has lived a life rooted in modesty and community values. When Meghan married Prince Harry, DORIA was often seen as a quiet figure of stability amidst the whirlwind of royal drama. But something must have changed for her to finally break her silence. Could it be that DORIA, having watched the global adoration and criticism Meghan faced, reached a breaking point? Or perhaps, as Meghan's mother, she felt an obligation to set the record straight, especially given the mounting suspicions and speculations about the authenticity of Meghan's pregnancies. But why now? Why after all these years of unwavering loyalty and silence? Is it possible that DORIA's conscience finally outweighed her commitment to maintaining Meghan's crafted image? Or did she simply feel that Meghan had gone too far, dragging the truth into a dangerous territory where lies can no longer sustain the public's perception? The timing of DORIA's revelation couldn't be more significant. Public trust in Meghan and Harry has already been waning, especially after multiple controversial interviews and memoirs that seemingly contradicted each other. People started piecing together inconsistencies, especially regarding the pregnancies. Social media has been abuzz with theories and side-by-side photo analyses, questioning the peculiar way Meghan's baby bump appeared to change size and shape almost overnight. One particular instance that caught the public's eye was when Meghan was seen squatting effortlessly while heavily pregnant, a move most expectant mothers, especially in the later stages, would find physically challenging. Another peculiar moment came when her belly seemed to shift unnaturally as she bent down to pet a dog during a royal engagement. Was this just a trick of the camera, or something far more telling? For years, fans and critics alike have argued over these moments, with some fiercely defending Meghan, insisting that the scrutiny is rooted in misogyny and racism. However, others believe that Meghan's penchant for crafting narratives has led to a carefully controlled presentation that doesn't always align with reality. Then there is the matter of secrecy surrounding the births. Unlike other royal births, which are typically celebrated with fanfare and hospital steps photo ops, both of Meghan's deliveries were shrouded in mystery. The palace's initial announcements were vague, and the timeline appeared inconsistent. When Archie was born, there was confusion over when Meghan went into labor and when the baby was actually delivered. As for Lilibet, the couple released a carefully written statement but offered no visuals or hospital details, a stark contrast to royal tradition. DORIA Ragland's revelation forces us to reconsider all these moments, not as isolated incidents but as part of a larger pattern, one where Meghan might have been playing a role far more intricate than just a mother-to-be. Doria's words, if true, suggest a premeditated effort to deceive not just the media but the entire world. As the story unfolds, it's essential to remember that Doria's claims have not been officially corroborated. Yet, the gravity of a mother speaking out against her own daughter in such a public manner cannot be understated. It raises crucial questions about their relationship. Was Doria truly in the dark all this time, or has she been complicit in maintaining the narrative, only to feel guilty about it now? The implications for Meghan are severe. If the story holds, it would mean that she orchestrated a deception of monumental proportions, one that would not only tarnish her credibility, but also question the authenticity of her public persona. More significantly, it would raise serious questions about the legitimacy of Archie and Lilibet's place in the royal line of succession. After all, royal lineage and birthright are paramount to the monarchy's structure, and surrogacy, if kept a secret, could be seen as a violation of the transparency expected from the royal family. Moreover, if Meghan has indeed faked both pregnancies, it could spell the end of her and Harry's dwindling public support. Despite their efforts to craft a new life away from the constraints of royal duties, this revelation could bring their brand of authenticity into serious doubt. As we continue to delve deeper into Doria's allegations, it's vital to approach the subject with both critical thinking and compassion. Is Doria merely trying to reveal the truth, or is there more to this story than meets the eye? What motivated her to expose her daughter so openly? And how will this impact Meghan's already strained relationship with the royal family? Stay tuned as we unravel the layers of this developing story, analyzing every claim, every possible motivation, and every potential consequence of this revelation. Whether you believe Doria's confession or not, one thing is certain: this story is far from over. From the very beginning, Meghan Markle's journey into royal life was framed as nothing less than a modern-day fairy tale. She was the American actress who captured the heart of a British prince, defying centuries of tradition and reimagining what it meant to be part of the royal family. Her wedding to Prince Harry was a spectacle of grandeur and elegance, watched by millions across the globe, celebrated as a symbol of change and modernity for the monarchy. The world was enchanted by the idea that love had triumphed over centuries of aristocratic barriers. But fairy tales are designed to be perfect. They are polished, presented with just the right amount of glitter to hide the flaws and imperfections lurking beneath. Meghan's entrance into royal life was no different. Her every appearance was curated, her every smile perfectly timed for the cameras. The royal family, known for its rigid adherence to tradition, seemed to embrace her with open arms, or at least that's what the public was led to believe. The narrative was clear. Meghan was the breath of fresh air that the monarchy desperately needed. Her mixed-race heritage was heralded as a step forward for diversity within the institution. Her outspoken nature was seen as empowering, a modern woman unafraid to speak her mind in an environment known for its restraint. Meghan and Harry were the embodiment of a new era, one where tradition and modernity could coexist in harmony. Yet, behind the glossy magazine covers and carefully worded interviews, whispers of discontent began to emerge. Royal aides spoke off the record about Meghan's supposed difficulty adjusting to royal life. Tabloid headlines hinted at clashes between Meghan and palace staff. There were rumors of tension between her and Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, two women from vastly different worlds, now forced to coexist under the same royal spotlight. But the real intrigue began with Meghan's first pregnancy announcement. It was October 2018, during Meghan and Harry's first royal tour in Australia, when the news broke. Kensington Palace released a statement, confirming that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were expecting their first child in the spring of 2019. The announcement was met with worldwide celebration, an heir to Harry and Meghan, the symbol of a new and modern royal family. However, almost immediately, the scrutiny began. Some questioned the timing of the announcement, which coincided with the beginning of their tour, a strategic move to overshadow other royal engagements. Others speculated about the secrecy surrounding the pregnancy. There were no official confirmations about where Meghan planned to give birth, no details about her medical care, and certainly no traditional royal hospital steps photo. As was customary for royal mothers like Princess Diana and Kate Middleton, public appearances during her pregnancy only added to the speculation. Meghan was often photographed cradling her baby bump, an act that some praised as motherly and affectionate, while others criticized as performative. Social media buzzed with debate, with critics suggesting that Meghan was flaunting her pregnancy for the cameras, while supporters defended her as merely expressing joy at her impending motherhood. But the real whispers began when Meghan's baby bump seemed to fluctuate in size and position. In some photographs, she appeared heavily pregnant, while in others, just days apart, her bump seemed significantly smaller. Conspiracy theories began to sprout across social media platforms, with some speculating that Meghan was wearing a prosthetic belly to exaggerate her pregnancy. At the time, these theories were dismissed as absurd, mere fodder for tabloid gossip. But as DORIA Ragland's recent revelations would suggest, there may have been more truth to those suspicions than anyone could have imagined. The public scrutiny reached a fever pitch during Meghan's appearance at the British Fashion Awards in December 2018. She stepped onto the stage, cradling her bump in a fitted black gown that accentuated her growing belly. Photographers captured the moment in high resolution, and the images were splashed across headlines worldwide. But eagle-eyed viewers noticed something peculiar. When Meghan moved, her belly seemed to shift unnaturally, almost as if it weren't quite real. Social media erupted with speculation. Was Meghan faking her pregnancy? Was the bump merely an illusion designed to project the image of royal motherhood? The palace, true to its nature, remained silent on the matter. Meghan, too, brushed off the rumors, continuing with her public appearances and engagements. But the theories only grew louder. Clips from her Australian tour were reanalyzed and scrutinized. In one video, Meghan was seen squatting gracefully to pet a dog, an action that most heavily pregnant women would find challenging. In another instance, she bent forward in a way that seemed impossibly comfortable for someone in her supposed stage of pregnancy. The whispers grew louder, but the royal family remained steadfast in their silence. Of course, royal pregnancies have always been events of global significance, marked by celebration and anticipation. But Meghan's was different. It wasn't just the fact that she was a Hollywood actress now carrying royal blood. It was the air of secrecy that seemed to shroud every aspect of her pregnancy. Unlike Kate Middleton, who appeared with her newborns on the steps of the Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital, Meghan and Harry opted for privacy. There would be no public viewing, no traditional photograph. When baby Archie was finally introduced to the world, it was during a highly controlled photo opportunity at Windsor Castle, far away from the prying eyes of the public. The decision was justified as a desire for privacy, a need to protect their newborn from the intrusive glare of the media. But critics saw it differently. To them, it was yet another layer of secrecy in a pregnancy that already seemed unusually guarded. Where were the medical records? Where were the hospital staff willing to speak about the royal birth? Why had Meghan and Harry broken with centuries of tradition for this child? To those on the outside, it appeared that Meghan was simply protecting her child. But DORIA Ragland's recent revelations suggest something far more calculated was at play. According to DORIA, Meghan's pregnancy was never real. Archie was born through a surrogate, hidden from public view to maintain the illusion of natural motherhood. It was a narrative crafted to perfection, executed with the precision of a Hollywood production, designed to project an image of royal normalcy while hiding a secret that would have surely rocked the monarchy to its core. Meghan's perfect image, her fairy tale of royal life, was perhaps always just that, an image, carefully sculpted and presented to the world. And if DORIA is to be believed, the pregnancies were merely props in a much larger performance. The true story of Archie and Lilibet's births, if exposed, would force the world to re-examine not just Meghan's role within the royal family, but the lengths to which she went to maintain the illusion of motherhood. The announcement of Meghan Markle's pregnancy was nothing short of a global event. It was October 15, 2018, when Kensington Palace made the grand revelation that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were expecting their first child. The timing was strategic. It came just as Meghan and Harry embarked on their highly publicized tour of Australia. Cameras were flashing, crowds were cheering, and the world seemed to collectively hold its breath in excitement. It was the perfect narrative. The American actress turned Duchess was now carrying a royal heir, cementing her place in history and in the hearts of millions. But as with all things royal, the announcement was carefully crafted. The wording was precise, designed to spark celebration while withholding just enough detail to maintain a shroud of mystery. Kensington Palace's statement read simply, "Their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are very pleased to announce that the Duchess of Sussex is expecting a baby in the spring of 2019. Short, sweet, and deliberately vague. No mention of how far along Meghan was, no confirmation of her due date, and absolutely no hint as to where she intended to give birth." Royal watchers were quick to note the stark difference in the announcement compared to those of Kate Middleton. When Kate was pregnant, the palace had been more forthcoming, sharing not only her due date but also confirming her hospital arrangements. Meghan's announcement, on the other hand, was shrouded in secrecy, igniting curiosity and, for some, suspicion. Was this just another attempt to control the media narrative, or was there something more at play? As the tour of Australia continued, Meghan appeared in a variety of outfits designed to highlight her blossoming bump. The world watched as she cradled her stomach during public appearances, a gesture that was both praised as maternal and criticized as performative. Social media buzzed with admiration and skepticism in equal measure. For every fan praising her motherly glow, there was another voice questioning the authenticity of her pregnancy. The theories were wild, ranging from claims of a prosthetic belly to accusations of outright surrogacy, all dismissed by mainstream media as baseless conspiracy. However, it wasn't just online speculation. Within royal circles, there were murmurs of unease. Staff at Kensington Palace reportedly found Meghan's insistence on privacy to be unusual. Palace insiders hinted that Meghan had demanded a level of secrecy that far exceeded what was typical for a royal pregnancy. Unlike Kate, who had embraced the royal tradition of publicly sharing her journey to motherhood, Meghan opted for closed doors and controlled access. Doctors were supposedly chosen in secrecy, and meetings were scheduled with a level of privacy that even senior royals found perplexing. But the strangest element came during public engagements. Meghan's baby bump, prominently displayed beneath designer dresses, seemed to change in size from one day to the next. Photographs from the tour showed her bump appearing pronounced in some images, while in others, it seemed almost unnoticeable. Critics, eager to discredit her, claimed it was evidence of deception. Supporters argued that such fluctuations were perfectly normal, the result of clothing choices and camera angles. Yet, the whispers persisted. One of the most talked about incidents occurred during a visit to the Royal Variety performance in November 2018. Meghan stepped out in a sequined black gown, her bump prominently on display. But as she moved, observers noted an odd shifting in her belly's position. Videos replayed in slow motion seemed to capture the bump tilting unnaturally as Meghan bent forward. Social media erupted with claims that the bump was a prosthetic. The hashtag #Megxit began trending, with users demanding answers to what they called the phantom pregnancy. The palace remained silent, maintaining its long-standing policy of ignoring rumors and speculation. Meghan, too, showed no sign of concern, continuing her engagements with a smile and a hand protectively cradling her stomach. To her, it seemed like business as usual. But behind closed doors, the royal family reportedly grew uneasy. According to insiders, there were discussions about the growing skepticism and how best to manage the narrative. The royal family, well-versed in the art of media manipulation, understood that perception was everything. Any crack in the facade of perfection cowl. This was especially true given the fragile state of Harry and Meghan's public image. Their whirlwind romance and sudden marriage had already sparked controversy, with many questioning Meghan's intentions. Was she genuinely in love with Harry? Or was this a calculated step into one of the most powerful families in the world? The pregnancy announcement, in many ways, seemed to solidify her place within the royal structure. After all, a child is a permanent connection, one that ties her not just to Harry, but to the monarchy itself. The tour concluded with a crescendo of media coverage. Meghan's bump the star of every front page. For many, it was proof that the monarchy was embracing modernity, celebrating diversity, and moving forward into a new era. But for others, it was the beginning of deeper suspicions. How could a woman who had struggled under the glare of royal life manage to carry a pregnancy so flawlessly, with no signs of discomfort, no moments of vulnerability? Where was the raw, unfiltered experience of motherhood that had been so evident with Kate? Meghan's journey seemed almost too perfect, too polished. It wasn't long before the media began digging deeper. Reports emerged of Meghan's refusal to share her medical plans with senior royals, a breach of tradition that raised eyebrows among the palace elite. There were also claims that Meghan had insisted on American doctors, much to the chagrin of royal advisors who believed that only British medical professionals should be trusted with the care of a royal heir. These decisions, while brushed off as personal preferences by Meghan's supporters, added fuel to the fire of conspiracy theorists who claimed she was hiding something. The announcement of Meghan's pregnancy had been a perfect media play, timed to generate maximum publicity during the Australian tour. It overshadowed other royal engagements, drawing attention solely to Harry and Meghan's growing family. But as the months wore on, the cracks in the narrative began to show. With every public appearance, the scrutiny grew harsher, the questions more pointed. Why had Meghan refused the traditional royal birth announcements? Why was there no clear plan for where she would deliver? And most importantly, why did her bump seem to change shape and size so frequently? By the time Meghan reached her third trimester, the speculation had reached a fever pitch. Paparazzi staked out every possible hospital, desperate for a glimpse of the royal baby's arrival. But Meghan and Harry had different plans. Unlike Kate, who had greeted the world on the steps of St. Mary's Hospital, Meghan chose privacy. Archie was born in secret, announced only after the fact. No fanfare, no waiting photographers, no public viewing. Just a carefully managed press release and a handful of photographs taken under strict control. The secrecy only deepened the mystery. For those who believed the rumors of surrogacy, it was the ultimate confirmation. If Meghan had truly carried the child, why the need for such elaborate privacy? Why refuse to follow the traditions that had marked every royal birth before hers? Meghan's defenders argued that she was merely protecting her child from the harsh glare of the media. But others saw it as a calculated move to hide the truth, a truth that DORIA Ragland would later come forward to confirm. As the world awaited more information, Meghan and Harry doubled down on their narrative, presenting themselves as fiercely protective parents who had chosen a different path for their child. But beneath the surface, the questions lingered. Was the pregnancy announcement a carefully crafted performance, a staged event designed to maintain control over a fragile public image? And if so, what else had been hidden behind the polished smiles and glowing photo ops? For years, DORIA Ragland had been the silent figure standing gracefully by Meghan Markle's side. In a world dominated by tabloid headlines and royal controversies, she remained a calming presence, stoic, dignified, and unwavering in her support for her daughter. She was there during Meghan's wedding to Prince Harry, the picture of elegance and pride as she watched her daughter marry into one of the world's most powerful families. Unlike other members of Meghan's family, who seemed eager to capitalize on her newfound fame, DORIA remained largely out of the spotlight, speaking only when necessary and always with measured restraint. But now, the silence had been shattered. In a move that shocked both royal watchers and casual observers alike, DORIA Ragland had come forward with a revelation that threatened to topple the carefully constructed narrative surrounding her daughter. According to DORIA, Meghan had never been pregnant, not with Archie and not with Lilibet. Both children, she claimed, were born through surrogacy, a secret kept from the world through calculated deception and tightly controlled media appearances. The news sent shockwaves through both sides of the Atlantic. For those who had long suspected Meghan's pregnancies were mere illusions, DORIA's confession was a vindication. For others, it was an unthinkable betrayal, a mother turning against her own daughter in such a public and damning manner. But for DORIA, it was a matter of conscience, a truth too heavy to keep buried any longer. DORIA's decision to speak out did not come easily. As someone who had lived her life outside the public eye, stepping forward with information of this magnitude meant sacrificing the privacy she had always cherished. But the weight of the secret, she claimed, had become too much to bear. According to insiders close to DORIA, the rift between mother and daughter had been widening for years, fueled by disagreements over Meghan's handling of her royal duties, her fractured relationship with the British press, and, most significantly, the deception surrounding her pregnancies. It began, DORIA reportedly said, during Meghan's first pregnancy with Archie. The initial excitement of her daughter's announcement had filled DORIA with joy, But soon after, doubts began to surface. She noticed small inconsistencies: Meghan's insistence on privacy, the peculiar fluctuations in her belly's appearance, and her refusal to allow family members too close during her supposed pregnancy. Doria tried to brush off her suspicions, convincing herself that Meghan was simply protecting her child from the intrusive glare of the paparazzi. But as time went on, the inconsistencies grew harder to ignore. Doria, who had been a social worker for years, was no stranger to reading people's behaviors. Her career had been built on understanding body language, interpreting emotional responses, and recognizing when something wasn't quite right. Meghan, despite her best efforts, began to display signs of strain, moments where her smile seemed forced, her movements too calculated. There were times when Meghan would excuse herself from family gatherings, citing pregnancy fatigue, yet she would emerge hours later looking perfectly rested and vibrant. The breaking point, according to Doria, came during Meghan's final trimester with Archie. Family members had expected a baby shower, a traditional celebration for expectant mothers. Meghan, however, insisted on privacy, opting instead for a small, highly secretive gathering with only her closest friends and select members of the press. When Doria arrived, she was struck by how detached Meghan seemed, as if she were playing a role rather than genuinely embracing motherhood. The gathering was filled with extravagant decorations and hand-picked photographers, but something was missing: the genuine joy and anticipation that usually accompanies such events. It wasn't until after Archie's birth that Doria began to piece together the truth. Despite the media's insistence that Meghan had given birth, there was no hospital footage, no royal doctors stepping forward to confirm the delivery. Meghan and Harry introduced Archie to the world in a controlled photo shoot at Windsor Castle, far away from the prying eyes of the press. Doria, present for the event, reportedly felt a wave of discomfort as she held her grandson for the first time. There was a formality to it, a sense of performance that unsettled her deeply. Doria's suspicions grew stronger when Meghan announced her second pregnancy with Lilibet. This time, the secrecy was even more profound. Meghan and Harry had stepped back from their royal duties by then, choosing to reside in California, far from the scrutiny of the British tabloids. For many, this seemed like a strategic move, a way to escape the pressure of royal life. But for Doria, it was something else entirely. She began to question whether Meghan had ever been pregnant at all. The final straw came during a private family gathering in late 2021. Doria, still holding on to the hope that her daughter had simply been misunderstood, asked Meghan directly about Lilibet's birth. Meghan, according to Doria, became defensive, her demeanor shifting almost instantly. There was no maternal glow, no proud recounting of the birth experience, just a curt dismissal and a change of subject. It was in that moment, Doria claims, that she knew the truth. But coming forward with this information was not a decision Doria made lightly. For months, she struggled with the implications of speaking out. Would she be branded a traitor? Would Meghan cut her off entirely? The questions haunted her, but the weight of the secret grew heavier with each passing day. According to sources close to Doria, she began confiding in trusted friends, seeking advice on how to proceed. Many urged her to remain silent, to protect her daughter and preserve the family's dignity. But Doria's conscience would not allow it. The decision to finally reveal the truth came after a series of heated arguments between mother and daughter. Doria, still clinging to the hope of reconciliation, reportedly begged Meghan to come clean, to admit the truth before the media did it for her. Meghan refused, insisting that the narrative had to remain intact, that their family's image depended on it. Doria, heartbroken but resolute, decided that she could no longer remain silent. When the news finally broke, it was met with disbelief. How could Doria, Meghan's closest ally, betray her in such a public manner? But as the details unfolded, the pieces began to fit together. Doria's claims were not just wild accusations, they were backed by years of observation, inconsistencies, and a mother's intuition. For many, her confession was the final puzzle piece in a saga that had long been shrouded in mystery. Now, the world was left to grapple with the implications. If Doria was telling the truth, then Meghan had orchestrated one of the greatest deceptions in royal history. If she was lying, it meant a mother had turned against her daughter for reasons yet unknown. Either way, the revelations cast a shadow over the Sussex family that would not easily be erased. As Doria stepped back into the shadows, her revelation left a lingering question that would haunt the royal family for years to come. If a mother could reveal such secrets about her own daughter, what else might be hidden beneath the surface. The cracks in Meghan's fairy tale were beginning to show, and Doria's words had only made them deeper. Long before Doria Ragland stepped forward with her stunning confession, whispers of surrogacy had already been circulating in the darkest corners of the internet. For many, Meghan Markle's pregnancy never quite added up. From her public appearances to the carefully curated photo shoots, there were inconsistencies that sparked curiosity and, eventually, full-blown conspiracy theories. Royal observers, body language experts, and even casual fans began dissecting every image, every movement, every gesture, searching for clues that would confirm or debunk what was rapidly becoming a global suspicion. The surrogacy theory was rooted in Meghan's very first public appearance after announcing her pregnancy. It was during the Sussex's Australian tour in October 2018 that Meghan debuted her baby bump to the world. She stepped off the plane in Sydney, glowing and beaming, her hand cradling her belly in a gesture that would soon become her signature. But even then, something seemed off. Critics pointed out that Meghan's baby bump appeared unusually pronounced for someone supposedly in the early stages of pregnancy. Photos of her from just weeks before showed no sign of a bump, yet now she appeared unmistakably pregnant. The sudden change raised eyebrows, but it was dismissed by many as mere speculation. However, the whispers did not stop there. As Meghan continued with her royal engagements, her bump seemed to fluctuate in size. One day it would appear round and firm. The next it seemed smaller and less defined. Photographs taken just days apart showed significant differences, enough for the public to take notice. Social media platforms buzzed with comparisons, side-by-side images that fueled the notion that something about Meghan's pregnancy was not as it seemed. The speculation only grew stronger during Meghan's appearance at the British Fashion Awards in December 2018. Dressed in a stunning one-shoulder black gown, Meghan took to the stage to present an award to her wedding dress designer, Claire Wakekeller. But it wasn't the gown or even Meghan's presence that caught the attention of the public. It was the way her belly seemed to move. As Meghan cradled her bump and leaned forward, eagle-eyed viewers noted an unnatural shifting of the bump's position. Video footage appeared to show the bump tilting slightly, almost as if it were an accessory rather than a natural part of her body. Online communities erupted with debate. Was Meghan wearing a prosthetic bump? Was the pregnancy a facade designed to control the narrative? Accusations of surrogacy began to swirl, with critics suggesting that Meghan's insistence on privacy was less about shielding her child and more about maintaining the illusion of pregnancy. Supporters, however, were quick to shut down the rumors, calling them cruel and baseless. To them, Meghan was simply a target of unwarranted scrutiny, the victim of relentless public criticism. Yet, the rumors persisted, fueled by Meghan's unusual choices throughout her pregnancy. Unlike Kate Middleton, who had followed royal tradition by giving birth in the Lindo wing of St. Mary's Hospital and posing on the steps just hours after delivery, Meghan and Harry opted for secrecy. There were no public appearances, no media frenzy outside the hospital. Instead, Meghan's labor was announced only after Archie had been safely delivered. The birth certificate listed Portland Hospital as the place of birth, a private facility known for its discretion and celebrity clientele. Royal watchers found this odd, given the monarchy's long-standing tradition of transparency during royal births. With Kate, the public had been informed of her labor almost immediately. Photographers and fans gathered outside the hospital, eagerly awaiting the birth of a future heir. But with Meghan, there were no such arrangements. Everything was kept under wraps, tightly controlled, and released only when Harry and Meghan were ready. For many, it was yet another indication that something was being hidden. Adding fuel to the fire was the revelation that Meghan had refused the services of the Queen's doctors, opting instead for a private medical team. Historically, royal births were overseen by the Queen's trusted physicians, a tradition that symbolized the monarchy's transparency and adherence to protocol. Meghan's decision to reject this tradition raised eyebrows and added to the growing list of questions surrounding her pregnancy. Was she simply asserting her independence, or was there a deeper reason for avoiding royal medical oversight? As the theories continued to grow, Meghan's public appearances only seemed to add credibility to the rumors. In several instances, her bump appeared to move unnaturally. One widely circulated clip showed Meghan crouching gracefully to pet a dog during an engagement. Critics were quick to point out that such movement would be nearly impossible for a woman in her third trimester. Others noted how her bump seemed to collapse slightly as she bent forward, sparking accusations of a silicone prosthetic. The speculation became so intense that it prompted reactions from major media outlets. Some labeled the rumors as absurd conspiracy theories driven by jealousy and racism. Others, however, quietly admitted that Meghan's pregnancy did indeed seem unorthodox when compared to previous royal mothers. Even seasoned royal correspondents began to acknowledge the discrepancies, though they stopped short of accusing Meghan of deception. The palace, true to its nature, remained silent, adhering to its long-standing policy of not responding to rumors. Despite the backlash, the surrogacy theory continued to gain traction, particularly among online communities dedicated to dissecting every aspect of Meghan and Harry's public lives. These groups began compiling lists of inconsistencies, the fluctuating bump size, Meghan's unusual comfort during late pregnancy, and the secrecy surrounding Archie's birth. They pointed to photographs where Meghan's belly seemed to sit unusually high or low depending on the event, an anomaly that defied typical pregnancy progressions. But the most compelling piece of evidence, according to conspiracy theorists, came during Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey. Meghan, visibly pregnant with Lilibet at the time, sat down for what would become one of the most talked-about interviews of the decade. Dressed in a black silk gown, she spoke about her struggles with royal life, mental health, and her decision to step back from royal duties. Yet, for many, the real story was her baby bump. It seemed smaller than expected for a woman so far along, sparking yet another wave of speculation that she was once again using a surrogate. DORIA Ragland's confession only added fuel to the fire. For years, the rumors had been brushed off as wild theories with no basis in reality. But now, Meghan's own mother had come forward, alleging that both Archie and Lilibet were born through surrogacy. According to DORIA, the decision had been made early on, driven by Meghan's desire to maintain control over her image and the narrative surrounding her family. The pregnancies, DORIA claimed, were staged with the help of prosthetics and carefully managed public appearances. If true, the implications were staggering. Meghan and Harry had not only misled the public but also the royal family itself. The secrecy, the defiance of tradition, the obsession with privacy, it all began to make sense in the context of a surrogacy arrangement. Royal lineage is sacred, tied to bloodlines and heritage. If Archie and Lilibet were indeed born through surrogacy, it could have dramatic implications for their positions within the royal succession. DORIA's revelation shattered the fragile narrative Meghan and Harry had worked so hard to build. What was once speculation had now been given weight by the words of a mother, one who had stood by her daughter through every trial and tribulation. But as DORIA stepped forward, she did so with a heavy heart, knowing that her truth would unravel the fairy tale that had been so meticulously constructed. The British royal family is an institution built on tradition, legacy, and above all, image. For centuries, the monarchy has been adept at controlling the narrative, presenting a pristine front to the world while concealing any hint of scandal behind palace walls. It is an intricate dance of public perception, one that has allowed the royal family to endure wars, political shifts, and modern cultural changes with its reputation largely intact. But when Meghan Markle entered the royal fold, the traditional structure began to show its cracks. From the very beginning, Meghan's relationship with the royal family was heavily scrutinized. Her status as a divorced American actress of mixed heritage made her an anomaly in the rigid hierarchy of British royalty. The press initially celebrated her arrival, heralding it as a new era for the monarchy, one that was more inclusive and progressive. But the honeymoon period was short-lived. Stories began to leak about tension behind the palace gates, about Meghan's unwillingness to conform to royal protocols and her insistence on doing things her way. Nowhere was this more evident than in the way her pregnancies were handled. Traditionally, royal pregnancies are moments of celebration, marked by public appearances, hospital step photo ops, and carefully coordinated announcements. Kate Middleton, for instance, followed the royal script to perfection. She appeared outside the Lindo wing just hours after giving birth, immaculate and poised, presenting her newborn to the world. It was an act of transparency, a way for the monarchy to share its joy with the public, reinforcing the idea of accessibility and trust. Meghan, however, took a drastically different approach. From the start, she demanded privacy, an unusual request for someone who had willingly married into one of the most public families in the world. There were no step appearances, no glimpses of hospital arrivals, no royal doctors standing by to confirm the birth. In fact, Meghan and Harry's handling of the announcement was shrouded in secrecy. They opted for a private birth at Portland Hospital, miles away from the traditional royal birthing location of St. Mary's. The couple released the news only after Archie was born, leaving the public and the press scrambling for details. This level of control was unprecedented and raised immediate questions. Why the secrecy? What was being hidden? For many, it was just another example of Meghan asserting her independence. But as time went on, the narrative began to shift. What if it wasn't just about privacy? What if it was about maintaining a carefully constructed image, one that could not withstand the scrutiny of tradition? When DORIA Ragland stepped forward with her confession that both Archie and Lilibet were born via surrogate, it suddenly made sense. The secrecy, the lack of transparency, the rejection of royal tradition, it all began to align with the idea that Meghan had something to hide. The surrogacy theory, once dismissed as a wild conspiracy, now seemed plausible, even probable, given the lengths Meghan and Harry went to control the narrative. The question then became, why lie? Why go through such elaborate measures to create the illusion of pregnancy? According to insiders familiar with the royal machinery, the answer lies in legacy and legitimacy. Royal bloodlines are the cornerstone of the monarchy's claim to power. For centuries, the passing of the crown has been dictated by lineage, by bloodlines traced back through generations. If Meghan had used a surrogate, and that fact was made public, it could call into question the legitimacy of Archie and Lilibet's place in the line of succession. The stakes were extraordinarily high. For Meghan, who had already faced intense scrutiny and criticism from both the British press and the public, the revelation of surrogacy could have been catastrophic. It would have shattered the image of the perfect royal mother she had worked so hard to cultivate. Furthermore, it would have exposed her children to questions of legitimacy that could haunt them for the rest of their lives. The decision to hide the surrogacy, if Doria's claims are true, was not merely about privacy, it was about preserving the image of a perfect royal family, untainted and above reproach. But that preservation came at a cost. Meghan and Harry's insistence on privacy, their refusal to follow royal tradition, and their tight grip on the narrative only fueled speculation. It created a vacuum of information, one that was quickly filled by rumors and conspiracy theories. The very act of controlling the image led to its unraveling, as more and more inconsistencies came to light. Meghan's fluctuating baby bump, her ability to perform physical tasks with ease while supposedly heavily pregnant, and the secrecy surrounding the births all played into the growing belief that what the public was seeing was nothing more than a facade. The royal family, for its part, remained silent. Adhering to its long-standing policy of never complain, never explain, the monarchy refused to comment on the rumors. Even as speculation reached a fever pitch, Buckingham Palace issued no statements, choosing instead to distance itself from the growing controversy. For many, this silence was seen as an endorsement, a tacit acknowledgement that something was amiss. After all, when accusations had been levied against other members of the royal family, the palace had been quick to defend its own. The lack of defense for Meghan was telling. Doria's confession only served to confirm what many had suspected for years. According to her, the decision to use a surrogate was made long before Meghan announced her pregnancy. It was a choice driven by practicality and control. Meghan, Doria claimed, wanted to be certain of every aspect of the pregnancies, from the health of the surrogate to the timing of the births. By using surrogates, Meghan could maintain the image of a glowing, unburdened mother, unencumbered by the physical demands of pregnancy. It allowed her to continue with royal duties, to appear flawless in public, and to present an image of perfection that the world would readily consume. The fallout from Doria's revelation was immediate. Questions of royal succession, legitimacy, and deception flooded social media and news outlets. Royal commentators speculated on what this would mean for Archie and Lilibet's future. Would they be stripped of their titles if surrogacy was confirmed? Would the royal family be forced to acknowledge the deception? And what of Meghan and Harry's relationship with the monarchy? Could it withstand the weight of such a scandal? For Meghan, the stakes could not be higher. If Doria's claims were proven true, it would mean that Meghan had orchestrated a deception on a global scale. It would call into question not just her character, but the very foundation of her marriage to Harry and their place within the royal family. The fairy tale would be over, replaced with the harsh reality of scandal and betrayal. And for Harry, the implications would be equally severe. Had he known? Was he complicit in the lie? Or had he been deceived as well? The world was left waiting for answers, the image of Meghan as the perfect royal mother now clouded with suspicion. If Doria's confession was true, it would be the largest royal scandal in modern history, a deception that cut to the very heart of the monarchy's image and purpose. And as the dust began to settle, one thing became clear. The truth, whatever it may be, would change everything. As the revelations surrounding Meghan Markle's pregnancies began to unravel, one question lingered in the minds of millions. If Doria Ragland's claims were true, who were the women who carried Archie and Lilibet? Surrogacy is a deeply personal and often guarded process, protected by confidentiality agreements and shielded from public scrutiny. But in the case of a royal heir, the stakes are far higher. The legitimacy of a child born into royalty is not just a matter of family. It's a matter of tradition, lineage, and succession. The royal family has long held its bloodline as sacred. For centuries, the birth of a royal child has been an event marked with pomp and ceremony, a public display of continuity and heritage. But if Meghan and Harry had indeed used surrogates for both Archie and Lilibet, it would mean that the line of succession had been altered behind closed doors, hidden from the public and shielded from royal scrutiny. To many, this was unthinkable, but to others, it made perfect sense. For months, rumors swirled about Meghan's pregnancies. Internet forums, social media platforms, and even mainstream tabloids speculated about the oddities surrounding her baby bumps. Footage of Meghan bending down with ease in her third trimester, her belly appearing to shift unnaturally during public engagements, and her refusal to share traditional hospital steps photographs after the births of both children all contributed to the growing suspicions. But the mystery of the surrogate mothers remained shrouded in secrecy. Sources close to the palace claimed that Meghan and Harry had gone to extraordinary lengths to protect the identities of the surrogate mothers. Non-disclosure agreements were allegedly signed, binding the women to absolute silence. Unlike other high-profile surrogacies where the process is often documented or at least acknowledged, the arrangements surrounding Archie and Lilibet were kept airtight, leaving no room for leaks or speculation. The surrogates themselves were reportedly chosen with extreme caution, women who had no known public presence, no ties to the media, and a willingness to disappear back into anonymity after the births were completed. The choice of surrogacy, if true, was not entirely without precedent among the world's elite. Wealthy families, celebrities, and powerful figures often opt for surrogacy for various reasons: medical complications, lifestyle preferences, or simply the desire to maintain a certain image. For Meghan, surrogacy would have allowed her to maintain her public appearances without the strain of pregnancy. She could continue with royal duties, travel, and engage with the press without the physical toll of carrying a child. Her public image remained untarnished, her body unchanged, and her narrative intact. But the secrecy surrounding the process is what drew the most suspicion. Unlike other celebrity surrogacies, which are often celebrated publicly with transparency and openness, Meghan and Harry's approach was shrouded in mystery. The announcement of Archie's birth, for instance, came not with the usual fanfare associated with royal births. There were no photographs on the hospital steps, no jubilant crowds waiting outside the Lindo wing. Instead, the announcement was made through a carefully curated photo shoot at Windsor Castle, with Archie swaddled in a white blanket, held tenderly by his parents. When asked about the birth, Meghan and Harry were vague, offering few details about the labor or the experience. Reporters were kept at arm's length, and the palace remained tight-lipped. To some, it was a sign of the couple's desire for privacy, a break from royal tradition in favor of a more modern approach to parenthood. But to others, it was evidence of a larger deception, a carefully managed public appearance designed to hide the truth. The suspicions only grew with the birth of Lilibet. This time, Meghan and Harry were living in California, far from the prying eyes of the British press. The announcement of her birth came with the same level of secrecy: no hospital name, no public appearance, just a statement released online. It was noted that the choice of California for Lilibet's birth allowed Meghan and Harry to exercise even greater control over the process. American surrogacy laws are different from those in the UK, allowing for more privacy and less public disclosure. In California, parents can legally claim parenthood of a child born via surrogate without the surrogate's identity ever being revealed. Insiders claimed that the decision to use American surrogates was strategic, allowing Meghan and Harry to sidestep the strict protocols of royal births. There would be no need for royal doctors to be present, no hospital visits from senior royals, and no public displays of the newborn. It was, in essence, the perfect cover, an American birth, outside the jurisdiction of the British monarchy, where the secrecy of surrogacy could be maintained with minimal risk of exposure. Reports also suggested that the surrogate mothers were provided with top-tier medical care and generous compensation for their role. The agreements allegedly included lifetime confidentiality, protection from the media, and even relocation if necessary. For Meghan and Harry, it was the ultimate safeguard against leaks, an ironclad arrangement that ensured their narrative remained unchallenged. But the story did not end there. Royal watchers began to question the implications of such secrecy. If Archie and Lilibet were indeed born via surrogates, what did that mean for their place in the line of succession? The royal family has strict traditions when it comes to bloodlines, and the use of a surrogate, if unacknowledged, could potentially disrupt the line of inheritance. Under British law, surrogacy arrangements are not automatically recognized unless formally legalized. If Meghan and Harry had not disclosed the surrogacy to the royal family, it could mean that Archie and Lilibet's royal titles were granted under false pretenses. The palace, for its part, has remained silent, sticking firmly to its policy of ignoring media speculation. But behind closed doors, it is rumored that there were serious discussions about the ramifications of DORIA Ragland's confession. If proven true, it would not only undermine Meghan and Harry's credibility, but also bring into question the very legitimacy of their children's place within the royal family. For the monarchy, lineage is not just symbolic. It is the bedrock of its power and its claim to authority. As more information trickled out, public opinion began to shift. Some saw Meghan and Harry's decision as a modern choice, an act of autonomy in a family bound by archaic rules. Others, however, viewed it as a betrayal, a deception that undermined the trust placed in the royal family. If Meghan had indeed orchestrated such a profound secret, it would mean that the public had been lied to, not just about the pregnancies, but about the very nature of royal tradition. The surrogate mothers themselves remain unknown, phantoms in a royal mystery that grows more complicated by the day. Their identities, if ever revealed, could unravel the narrative that Meghan and Harry have worked so diligently to maintain. For now, the secret remains intact, held tightly by those sworn to secrecy. But as the cracks in the story continue to widen, one question remains. How much longer can this illusion be sustained before the truth finally breaks through? When the news of DORIA Ragland's confession began to circulate, the halls of Buckingham Palace reportedly erupted in whispers and hurried conversations behind closed doors. For a family that had mastered the art of controlling narratives and quelling scandals, this was a revelation of seismic proportions. Surrogacy within the royal family was not just an issue of secrecy. It was a potential breach of tradition, a challenge to centuries-old customs, and a threat to the very foundation of the line of succession. According to sources close to the palace, senior members of the royal family were blindsided by the news. Meghan and Harry's departure from royal duties had already created a rift, one that had barely begun to heal. Now, with Doria's claims that Archie and Lilibet were born via surrogate, the rift threatened to split wide open. Queen Elizabeth, known for her stoicism and unwavering commitment to tradition, was said to be deeply troubled by the implications. Not only did it call into question the legitimacy of two royal children, but it also cast a shadow over the institution's ability to maintain control over its own narrative. Palace aides were reportedly instructed to gather information discreetly, reaching out to those who had been involved in Meghan's pregnancies, staff members, medical professionals, and even personal friends of the couple. Yet, what they found was unsettling: layers of privacy, ironclad non-disclosure agreements, and a network of secrecy that made it nearly impossible to verify the claims. Meghan and Harry's insistence on privacy during the births, which had been seen as a modern twist on royal tradition, now seemed like calculated concealment. One source indicated that senior royals, including Prince Charles and Prince William, held urgent meetings to discuss the potential fallout. If Doria's allegations proved to be true, it would mean that the public had been misled on an extraordinary scale. More crucially, it would mean that the line of succession had been altered under false pretenses. Royal protocol dictates that every birth in the line of succession is verified by trusted members of the royal medical team, a tradition that dates back generations to prevent any dispute over legitimacy. Meghan's refusal to use the Queen's doctors, opting instead for her own private team, was now seen not just as a break from tradition, but potentially as a means to hide the truth. Behind the palace gates, the atmosphere grew tense. Discussions turned from disbelief to damage control. How would the monarchy handle such a revelation if it were proven true? Would Archie and Lilibet be stripped of their titles? Would Meghan and Harry be forced to issue a public statement, acknowledging the truth behind the births of their children? The monarchy had faced scandals before. Infidelity, divorces, even allegations of political interference. But surrogacy was uncharted territory. It struck at the heart of royal tradition, where bloodlines were sacred and untarnished. If Meghan had indeed orchestrated a surrogacy arrangement without the Queen's blessing, it would represent a betrayal not just to the family but to the institution itself. The Queen, renowned for her commitment to royal protocol, was particularly disturbed by the notion that such a significant event could have been kept secret. According to insiders, she summoned her closest advisors, demanding clarity and reassurance. But the advisors, bound by the privacy Meghan and Harry had established, could offer little. The secrecy surrounding the births of Archie and Lilibet had been watertight, managed by a small, trusted circle that included American doctors and private medical facilities far from the scrutiny of royal observers. Compounding the palace's concerns was the media storm that erupted in the wake of Doria's revelation. Tabloid headlines screamed allegations of deception and fraud, while social media buzzed with theories and speculations. Was this the real reason Meghan and Harry had fled to America? To escape the prying eyes of royal tradition and control the narrative of their children's births without interference? Some royal commentators began to question whether Meghan had always intended to bypass royal customs. Her refusal to use the Queen's medical team, her insistence on privacy, and her guardedness over Archie and Lilibet's appearances now seemed less like personal preference and more like a carefully calculated strategy. The palace's public relations team scrambled to contain the damage. Statements were drafted and redrafted, each version weighed for its implications. In the end, Buckingham Palace released a brief, carefully worded statement, reaffirming its love and support for Harry, Meghan, and their children, but offering no clarification on the allegations. It was a strategy of silence, an age-old tactic employed by the monarchy to starve scandal of oxygen. Yet, in the age of digital media, silence often speaks louder than words. The public took the palace's refusal to comment as an admission of guilt, sparking even more debate and controversy. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry remained characteristically defiant. Sources close to the couple suggested that they had been expecting backlash ever since Doria's confession was made public. Meghan, in particular, was said to be outraged by her mother's betrayal. For years, Doria had been Meghan's pillar of support. The one family member who stood by her side during the royal wedding, who moved to London to help with Archie, who defended her daughter's decisions without question. Now, that bond was shattered, and Meghan reportedly felt exposed and vulnerable. To her, Doria's decision to come forward was not just a betrayal of trust, but an act of war. For Harry, the stakes were even higher. His decision to leave royal life had already branded him as an outsider. Now, with questions about his children's legitimacy swirling, his place within the royal family seemed more tenuous than ever. Some speculated that this scandal could be the final nail in the coffin for Harry's relationship with his family. Already estranged from his brother, distanced from his father, and publicly at odds with the monarchy, Harry was now facing the possibility of being seen as complicit in a grand deception. Within the walls of Buckingham Palace, contingency plans were reportedly being drawn up. Advisors debated the possibility of a royal investigation, a move that would be unprecedented in modern royal history. Such an investigation would require transparency, the very thing the Sussexes had fought to avoid. It would mean medical records, testimony from those involved, and perhaps even the unmasking of the surrogate mothers themselves. But the risks were monumental. If the allegations were true, it would plunge the monarchy into chaos. If they were false, it would irreparably damage any chance of reconciliation with Harry and Meghan. The royal family faced a dilemma unlike any before. To address the rumors would be to validate them, opening the door to even more scrutiny. To ignore them risked appearing complicit or worse, guilty. Queen Elizabeth, known for her sharp political instincts, reportedly favored silence, believing that time would diminish the scandal. Others, including Prince William, were said to advocate for transparency, arguing that the monarchy's survival depended on its integrity. For Meghan and Harry, the fallout was just beginning. Their carefully constructed image of independence and authenticity now hung in the balance, threatened by a mother's confession and a secret too big to contain. The royal family, too, was left grappling with its next move, caught between tradition and modernity, secrecy and truth. From the moment Meghan Markle announced her pregnancy, her public appearances were nothing short of a spectacle. Dressed in the finest couture and adorned with a smile that radiated confidence and grace, Meghan cradled her baby bump with a maternal instinct that was almost theatrical. Each outing was meticulously planned, every gesture seemingly calculated to convey a picture-perfect image of motherhood. But as the rumors of surrogacy grew louder, these public appearances took on a different light. A performance staged to perpetuate a narrative that was beginning to show cracks. The first major event that sparked widespread speculation was Meghan's visit to the Royal Variety performance in November 2018. Wearing a glittering black sequin gown that hugged her growing belly, Meghan stepped out onto the red carpet with Harry by her side. Cameras flashed, capturing the Duchess of Sussex as she greeted well-wishers and accepted flowers from children. But as she moved, something peculiar caught the eyes of those watching closely. Her belly seemed to shift slightly, almost as if it were a detachable accessory rather than a natural part of her body. Footage from the event went viral, slowed down and analyzed frame by frame. Social media users posted clips that appeared to show Meghan's baby bump moving unnaturally, folding in on itself as she bent forward to shake hands. Critics immediately latched onto the footage as evidence of a prosthetic bump, while supporters dismissed the claims as mere conspiracy theories. But for those who were already skeptical, it was another piece of the puzzle, proof that Meghan's pregnancy was not as authentic as it seemed. In the months that followed, Meghan's public appearances became more frequent and more scrutinized. During her royal tour of Australia, Meghan was seen cradling her bump at nearly every event. Her hand rarely left her belly, a gesture that became so commonplace that it sparked both admiration and criticism. Supporters lauded her as a loving mother, deeply connected to her unborn child, while critics accused her of being performative, using the bump as a prop to elicit sympathy and attention. The speculation intensified during a visit to Birkenhead in January 2019. Meghan appeared in a bright red coat and purple dress that accentuated her growing belly. But as she moved through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting well-wishers, photographs taken from different angles showed her bump appearing to fluctuate in size. In some shots, it seemed firm and round. In others, it appeared almost deflated. The inconsistency sparked a wave of questions. How could her bump change shape so dramatically in a matter of moments? Was it the fabric of her dress, the angle of the camera, or something far more orchestrated? Online forums dedicated to analyzing royal appearances erupted with theories. Some speculated that Meghan was wearing a prosthetic bump that could be adjusted for different stages of pregnancy. Others pointed to specific moments when Meghan bent down or sat awkwardly, her bump appearing to shift unnaturally under her dress. One video, in particular, showed Meghan squatting gracefully to greet a small child. The ease with which she moved, despite being visibly pregnant, raised eyebrows. Women who had experienced pregnancy themselves questioned how Meghan could perform such physical movements without any apparent discomfort. Fuel was added to the fire when Meghan attended the British Fashion Awards in December 2018. Wearing a sleek black gown with one shoulder exposed, she cradled her belly as she presented an award to Claire Wakekeller, the designer of her wedding dress. As she moved across the stage, her belly seemed to shift subtly, a movement that was captured on camera and replayed countless times on social media. Some insisted it was just the fabric of the dress or the way she was holding her stomach, but for conspiracy theorists, it was further evidence of a fabricated pregnancy. As the months wore on, the scrutiny only intensified. Meghan's choice of maternity wear was analyzed with the precision of forensic investigation. Tabloids ran side-by-side comparisons of her bump from different events, highlighting inconsistencies in size and shape. Reports emerged of Meghan's insistence on complete privacy during her medical appointments, fueling speculation that she was hiding something. Unlike previous royal pregnancies, there were no hospital visits with photographers waiting outside, no confirmations from royal doctors, and no official medical announcements from the palace. Instead, Meghan and Harry maintained an almost impenetrable shield of secrecy. When Archie was finally born, the secrecy reached new heights. Breaking with royal tradition, Meghan and Harry refused to present their newborn on the steps of the Lindo wing, as Kate Middleton had done with all three of her children. Instead, they opted for a private introduction at Windsor Castle, inviting only a select group of photographers. The move, while defended as a desire for privacy, was criticized as a deviation from royal custom, a snub to the public that had long supported the monarchy. Meghan's public appearances with Archie were equally controlled. Unlike other royal children, who were often seen with their parents during public engagements, Archie remained largely out of sight. On the rare occasions he did appear, it was during highly curated moments: a Christmas card photo, a staged visit to South Africa, a brief glimpse on social media. To critics, it was another indication that the Sussexes were hiding something. If Archie had been born via surrogate, as DORIA Ragland claimed, these appearances were nothing more than an extension of the facade, carefully crafted images designed to maintain the illusion of a perfect family. The same pattern followed with Lilibet. Born in California, far from the traditional birthing locations of the royal family, her introduction to the world was similarly controlled. There were no photographs of Meghan leaving the hospital, no glimpses of the newborn swaddled in royal blankets. Instead, Meghan and Harry released a brief statement announcing her birth, accompanied by a single photo months later. The decision, they insisted, was about protecting their children from media intrusion. But for those who doubted Meghan's pregnancies, it was yet another layer of concealment, a strategic move to avoid scrutiny. The royal family's silence on the matter only added to the speculation. Despite growing public interest and mounting accusations, Buckingham Palace issued no statements, made no comments, and offered no defense. To those on the outside, it was seen as a tacit acknowledgement that something was amiss. After all, the palace had been quick to defend Kate Middleton against rumors and allegations during her pregnancies, issuing statements that quashed gossip before it could take hold. But with Meghan, there was only silence, a silence that spoke volumes to those determined to uncover the truth. Meghan's public appearances, once seen as graceful and elegant, were now dissected as acts of deception. Her movements were analyzed, her maternity were critiqued, and her secrecy questioned at every turn. The image she had crafted, the picture-perfect Duchess cradling her bump, smiling for the cameras, was now under siege. And with Doria Ragland's confession hanging in the air, that image began to crumble. The question that remained was whether the illusion could be maintained. With each public appearance, the skepticism grew stronger, the whispers grew louder, and the cracks in the story became impossible to ignore. If Meghan's pregnancies were indeed fabrications, her public appearances were not